If you've been paying attention to politics really at all in the last few years, you know that Republicans are obsessed with a certain word.
Wokeness is a virus more dangerous than any pandemic, hands down.
Most of us know that woke is
Who's your dream guest for the show? Literally Bill Burr. I've said this before.
a term created by Black Americans, and it basically means being aware of what's going on around you.
Hasan comedian stand-up art. I don't think you know this, but like I've been a fan of comedy from the jump. As a matter of fact, if anything, it's like one of my main distinguishing factors in comparison to the rest of the left, or not the rest of the left, but like a big chunk of the left, is that like this is a pro joking is allowed leftist broadcast, which never happens. It's usually that and I'm not talking about like, you know, the Adam Friedland show, the most notorious center left podcast, because those guys are comedians, right? They're comedians already. They're comedians first. But there are not a lot of places that you can go to if you're a leftist where people talk this much about social justice, this much about like genuine issues that also allow humor to exist.
Especially when it comes to issues of race and social justice. But last week, some of the most committed ultra-MAGA supporters got together for CPAC, the annual conservative conference, where definitions of this term were murky.
I think the woke today are basically the ones who buy into the mainstream dominant narrative of that everything's a identity-oriented, virtue signaling position to have a different position of power. That whole narrative, I think that's people who genuinely believe that are basically brainwashed.
Wokery is part of the Marxist agenda, along with ESG, along with the 1619 movement and BLM.
What do you think woke means?
I think that it's an attack on regular family values that have been consistently themed in the United States.
Yeah, this is the closest you get to fascist rhetoric. This guy's not smart enough to be like, oh yeah, it's just bad. It's when it's all the bad things. He's just so straight up said, traditional family values is an attack on traditional family values. Yeah, dude, that's why all the woke people are trying to fucking forcibly separate trans children from their fucking parents. You know what I mean? Or that's why all the woke people are literally, that's why all the woke people like Ben Shapiro are advocating that the government come in and subject you to the foster care system, like kidnap you and put you in the fucking foster care system if you don't have enough money to feed your child.
States for hundreds of years.
I'm a mom, and so for me, woke is probably a little bit different than just the huge general population. I think more about my children and schools that they're in, and children are now coming home and thinking that they have to accept things that maybe we didn't teach in our family or in our home. So everything it's just being disruptive.
Even if nobody is 100% consistent in how they define it, one thing you are sure to get here is a steady stream of over-the-top invective about it from the stage. In fact, anti-wokeness seems to be the glue that is holding an otherwise fractious GOP together at the moment. And the thing is, GOP anti-wokeness is really just new packaging for an old idea. We used to call it the culture war, and its main tenet seems to be that diversity is bad.
We will teach our values and promote our history and our traditions to our children. We will, in other words, be proud of our country again.
And at CPAC, it's easy to think that, quote, the war on woke is America's main issue. But out in the real world, most Republicans think that their leadership isn't focusing on what matters most, the economy. It's not clear if anti-wokeness is the winning strategy that some Republican officials think it is.
When I see the state of politics right now and kind of what's on the ballot for 2024, topics like woke is just a complete distractor from actual issues. Homelessness is up. People are out of jobs.
Yeah, my man. Bro, look at that. That's that right there. You know what that is? That's an old school conservative. He's like, yeah. We know this is not the best thing to talk about. So I think it's time to it's not the best thing to talk about. I think it's time to just make sure that we hammer on the issues that we care about, like deregulation. Deregulation, baby. You know, tort reform or whatever the fuck.
Jobs. People are struggling to pay the bills. Gas prices are up. Those are the issues that I care about. I feel it's very disingenuous to say that the most important issue is whether or not we're putting transgender bathrooms. Republicans were running this idea for like the past, 3-4 election cycles. Look how that turned out.
GOP voters are hungry for an electoral win, and at least some of the elected officials we ran into at CPAC are more keen to talk about what they're up to in Congress.
I gave my speech about the border. I gave my speech about the oversight agenda and about the work that we have to do to make sure that our government isn't weaponized. So I tried to give a really substantive policy speech about those matters.
Okay. We're focused on reducing crime. We're focused on reducing inflation. We believe we have inflation because Washington spent too much money, but the big priority is trying to get the border secure.
And that's more important than wokeness, you probably think.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're concerned about reducing inflation. We're concerned about reducing crime, which would mean securing the border, and we're concerned about the government being involved in trying to change the way people think.
Just how anti-woke a candidate should be is something that will be tested in the upcoming primaries. But the person who is making a pretty successful attempt at honing in on the quote, woke mind virus, his words, not ours, is someone who wasn't even at CPAC, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis has made anti-wokeness his political brand by signing the Don't Say Gay bill, banning CRT in Florida classrooms, and going after Disney. And starting this month, Florida is expected to pass a bunch more measures, like banning the use of preferred pronouns in K-12 schools and scrapping gender studies and diversity programs in state universities. This is what turning anti-woke words into actual anti-diversity policy looks like. And it might set up DeSantis nicely to tangle with former President Donald Trump.
DeSantis is coming out of the pulpit of an actual governor right now. And by him taking that stance against the woke as the CEO of a state, it's actually a pretty bold move. So he's not sidelined like Trump is now, talking as a private citizen. He's making that a stance of the executive branch of government for the state of Florida. It's pretty bold.
I'm
Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts, not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my fucking Lord, dude. I love that shit. All you need to do is subscribe, obviously.